This video is for anyone who wants to get faster and more powerful, either for your sport, if you're a track and field athlete or a football player or something, or if you just want to be all-round fast, fit and strong. I want to go through some sample workouts for developing your fast twitch muscle fibers, mostly for the type 2X fast glycolytic fibers specifically. I've already made a more detailed video about these fast twitch fibers and the principles of training them effectively, so you can check that out in the description or on my channel page. In short, fast twitch fibers have a very fast contraction velocity. They're used for things like jumping, throwing, and short sprints, and they mostly use anaerobic metabolism, meaning the body's energy currency ATP is produced without oxygen, either by the glycolytic pathway or the creatine phosphate pathway. So let's get into some fast twitch workouts. So I'll start with plyometrics. Plyometrics are basically movements that involve very quick lengthening and shortening of the muscles. So for example, if you drop down from a box, your quads and calves will lengthen as you land, and then if you bounce up as soon as you land, those same muscles are quickly shortening. That's a plyometric. The ground contact time is really short, so we're making use of the elastic energy that's generated during the stretch in order to very quickly contract right after, making use of the stretch reflex. The muscle is stretching and shortening very quickly, and this is called the stretch shortening cycle. And plyometrics enhance this stretch shortening cycle, allowing for greater force production and power output during the shortening phase, which means you jump higher, run faster, and throw further, etc. And plyometrics recruit the fast twitch muscle fibers that we're trying to target with our training. So let's have a look at some plyometrics exercises. You should choose the ones that are most specific to your sport. I'll cover some quite general exercises that cover multiple directions of movement, and then you can switch these up with variations and combinations. First one is a box jump. So you just bend your knees slightly and then quickly explode up to jump onto a box. This is also called a counter movement jump because you're moving down, immediately followed by jumping up. Down and up like counter movement. So you land on the box with your hips higher than your knees. And that means you don't need a super tall box that requires you to bring your knees up really high. Do 3 to 5 reps in each set and like 3 to 5 total sets. And box jumps will train your vertical jumping ability. The next kind of jump is a bound. So this is kind of like a standing long jump. You just jump forwards as far as you can off both legs, bouncing forwards into your next jump as soon as you hit the ground. So you'll probably be doing like 2 to 3 jumps in each rep, and you should set up a distance goal like 5 meters, and you want to hit that distance goal in as few jumps as possible. Remember that with fast twitch training, effort needs to be really high. Each of these exercises needs to be performed with max intensity, like you're jumping as far as you can every time. So repeat your 5-meter bounds for like 3 total reps, and then rest 2 to 3 minutes and repeat that for a total of 4 to 5 sets. And this is training your horizontal jumping ability or your forward jumping ability. The next movement is a single leg hop. So you get into the Bulgarian split squat position and you jump off the front leg like 3 to 5 times. Keep the stretch shortening cycle short, so you're bouncing up as soon as your foot hits the floor, and you don't need to bring your front knee up very high for this either. Repeat this for 3 to 5 sets, resting like 2 to 3 minutes in between each set. So single leg movements like this are going to be very good for anyone who has to sprint or move explosively off one leg in their sport, which to be honest is most sports. I recommend including at least one bilateral jump from both legs at the same time, like a box jump or a bound, and at least one unilateral movement like this single leg hop, or the next exercise, lateral bounds. So in this one, you're just hopping from side to side about 1 meter or 2, and you're landing on alternating legs. So you're just jumping from side to side explosively, and you want to keep the ground contact time as short as possible. So you're landing and then you bounce off your leg immediately, spring off into the opposite direction to land on your other leg. And you can do like 5 hops on each leg in each set, and then do like 4 to 6 sets. Next is an upper body plyometric movement, and that is the plyometric push-up. So you perform explosive push-ups so that your hands leave the ground at the top of the movement. You could clap your hands while you're in the air if you like, and like with all other plyometrics, you want to spend as little time on the ground as possible. So you push off immediately after landing. So you don't need a full elbow bend, only a little bit of elbow bend, so that your hands touch the ground and then you launch yourself into the air again. And remember, with fast twitch training, our goal is not to exhaust the muscles like we're bodybuilding. The goal is to stay fresh and maintain high velocity and high effort on each rep. So we're not going to do a lot of reps in each set. We don't want to be approaching failure or getting really tired. Something like 3 to 5 sets of 3 to 6 plyometric push-ups is fine. And lastly, we have a rotational medicine ball throw. So you stand perpendicular to the wall, which you're going to throw the ball at, and then you hold the ball in front of you, like on your left hip, for example. Rotate your hips left ways, slightly away from the wall, and then quickly reverse that movement to rotate to the right explosively and toss the medicine ball at the wall. And do this for 3 to 5 reps on each side and 3 to 5 sets in total. And again, you can do loads of variations of these. You can combine some of them together. You could do different kinds of medicine ball throws. You could introduce like hurdles. There's a lot of customization you can do with these, and you can make it a lot more specific to your sport. So that covers plyometrics. You should include at least like 2 or 3 of these every week. And the next kind of workout is sprinting. So sprinting is obviously very important for speed. Obviously, they're going to make you much faster. And technically, each step of a sprint is actually a plyometric. For fast twitch muscle specifically, we want very high effort, short ground contact time, short sprint duration, plenty of rest, and pretty low volume. So an example sprint workout for speed would be starting with a warm-up. So like 5 to 10 minutes of a general dynamic warm-up, like high knees, butt kicks, lunges, skips, and like jogging around, and then 3 to 5 short sprints at like 60 to 80% effort to get your muscles used to exerting themselves at that level. And then getting into the main workout, you do 3 to 4 reps of 10-meter sprints, focusing on acceleration at the start, and rest 1 minute between each of those. 3 to 4 reps of 20-meter sprints, focusing on maintaining speed for the first few steps, and rest 2 minutes in between each of those. And then 2 or 3 reps of 40-meter sprints with max effort, focusing on maintaining good form, and rest 4 minutes between each of those sprints. And then cool down with like some light jogging for 5 minutes and some static stretching or foam rolling. And another example sprint workout for speed, you could again do a warm-up like 5-10 minutes of the high knees and the butt kicks and everything, some sprint drills like A skips and B skips, and then the main workout, you could do sled pull sprints with light to moderate resistance, do 3 or 4 sets of 20 meters, resting for 2 minutes in between each of those, and then 10-meter sprints for 3 to 5 reps, resting 1 minute between each of those, and then cool down with jogging, stretching, and foam rolling. Another important part of any speed and power program is having a good base of strength and muscle. This seems kind of counterintuitive based on my previous video where I spoke about how typical heavy strength training and hypertrophy training will develop your type 2A fibers very well, but not so much your type 2X fibers. But having bigger and stronger muscles does translate to more speed and power to a certain extent, as long as you really dedicate yourself to speed training. And everyone needs to have a foundation of muscle and strength anyway. If you think about it, practically every high-level speed or power athlete includes some amount of strength and hypertrophy work in their program, even though most of their training is going to be very sport-specific. And the off-season is a good opportunity to build some size and strength, and then to translate that into more speed leading up to the competition season. So for strength work, you should be doing heavy compound lifts close to your 1 rep max to build a base of strength, above like 80% of your 1 rep max. The most beneficial movements are going to be things like squats, trap bar deadlifts, weighted pull-ups, and the overhead press. So a mini 3-week strength progression scheme could look something like 4 sets of 5 at 75% of your 1 rep max in week 1, and then 3 sets of 5 at 80% in week 2, and 3 sets of 3 at 90% in week 3. And then you can repeat that again with the same weights for another 3 weeks, and then retest your 1 rep max, or just add 2.5 kilos or 5 pounds to your 1 rep max and go again with the same percentages, but now with your new heavier 1 rep max. And this is based on the Fighter Strength Program from the Tactical Barbell book by Kay Black, which is a very minimalist strength program that allows you to focus on other areas like speed in this case. For your hypertrophy work, again, this should mostly be done in the off season, so you're building some muscle size and then translating that new muscle tissue into speed gains when we focus more on speed training. The volume range is going to be like 3 to 4 sets of 6 to 12 reps, so higher reps compared to the strength training with slightly lighter loads. If you're like in your competition season, you don't want to be going to failure too much because it causes so much fatigue and muscle damage that it will hinder your speed performance. So when you're in season, you want to be staying as fresh as possible, not exhausting yourself all the time. But when you're in the off season, you can get away with going to failure a lot more in your hypertrophy work, and that will be really good for building new muscle tissue. So you should choose specific exercises that are appropriate for your sport. So for example, the Nordic curl is really good for reducing hamstring injury risk for sprinters, and you should also be addressing any weak points that you have that might be affecting your performance or increasing your injury risk. Ideally, we keep strength and hypertrophy work away from the speed work so that we're very well recovered and the physiological adaptations associated with each of those things don't interfere with each other. But realistically, with schedule constraints, we're probably going to have to combine a lot of the things I discuss in this video into one workout, and I'll talk about how to program all of this at the end. The next kind of workout is dynamic effort work. So this involves normal strength exercises like squats, but performed with lighter weights at much faster speeds. So you can do speed deadlifts, speed squats, or jumping back squats, or jumping trap bar deadlifts. Reps are going to be kept very low in each set, no more than 5 reps in a set, and probably more like 1 to 3 reps. The emphasis is on maximum intensity and high speed, not approaching failure or tiring out your muscles at all. The number of sets can be very high, between like 5 to 10 sets, and make sure that you have plenty of rest in between each set so that you don't get particularly fatigued. And Olympic lifts are also somewhat related to this category. They require a lot of speed and power, and you won't be able to go as heavy as you could on traditional strength movements like a back squat or a front squat. So the Olympic lifts are the snatch and the clean and jerk, and the power versions of these are also really great and much easier to learn, and these lifts are very beneficial for power output. Arguably, if your strength training, your sprinting and your plyometrics are all dialed in, then you might not need Olympic lifts, but they're undeniably very, very useful. I admit I have basically no experience in Olympic lifts myself, so if you want more info about using those for athleticism, you can watch some other videos on YouTube. There are lots of great channels for that, like Garage Strength comes to mind. And lastly, we want to be training the appropriate energy systems with conditioning. We have 3 energy systems: aerobic metabolism, anaerobic lactic metabolism, also known as glycolysis, and anaerobic alactic metabolism, which is the creatine phosphate system. And for these fast twitch fibers, we're mostly using the creatine phosphate system for really short events like throwing and jumping, and the glycolytic system for slightly longer events like sprinting. So that means in order to train these anaerobic systems, we're going to do high intensity, short duration intervals for fast twitch fibers. When you're conditioning, you should choose movements that are fairly specific to your sport. The simplest one would just be sprinting, but you can also do the assault bike or hitting a bag or shadow boxing or something. So you can increase the power output of your creatine phosphate system by doing alactic power intervals. This involves 7 to 10 seconds of work, followed by 2 to 5 minutes of rest in between sets, or until you're fully recovered and your heart rate is below 120 beats per minute. And you should do 5 to 6 total reps in each workout. And this will improve your max speed and your power. And you can improve the capacity of your creatine phosphate system by doing alactic capacity intervals. This involves 10 to 15 seconds of work, so a little bit longer, but still very, very intense, and 20 to 90 seconds of rest, so much shorter rest intervals. And you repeat this for 10 to 12 reps. So this one will improve your ability to maintain high speed and power output for a fairly long period of time with minimal rest. You can increase the power output of your lactic or glycolytic system by doing lactic power intervals. So you could do a max effort sprint for 20 to 40 seconds. Obviously you can't maintain max speed for that long, so it's the level of effort that matters. And you rest 1 to 3 minutes in between each rep, get your heart rate down to below like 130, and you do 3 reps in each set, and then you rest 8 to 15 minutes between sets and do 2 to 4 sets in each workout. And this increases how much power your lactic system can generate. And you can increase the capacity of your lactic system by doing lactic capacity intervals. This is where you do a max effort sprint for 90 to 120 seconds. So this is really horrible, really brutal. And then you rest 1 to 2 minutes in between reps, do 3 reps in each set, active rest 4 to 6 minutes between each set, and do 2 to 4 sets per workout. And this workout will increase how long you can maintain high effort output. I'm giving full credit to Joel Jamieson and his really excellent book, Ultimate MMA Conditioning, for these workouts. Check out that book if you want to learn pretty much everything there is to know about conditioning, aerobic, anaerobic, you name it. It's one of the best conditioning resources I've ever come across. So how can we put these workouts into our training program to maximize fast twitch muscle and speed? You should try to include each section every week. So you can do low volume plyometrics at the start of each strength session, and probably you should do at least one dedicated plyometrics session per week if fast twitch fibers and explosiveness is really something you want to emphasize. The goal for dedicated plyometric sessions should be at least like 80 to 100 jumps or plyometrics per session if you're a beginner, 100 to 120 if you're intermediate, and 120 to 140 if you're advanced. And I get these numbers from the movement system on YouTube. He has some really useful videos on plyometrics and fast twitch training. So to get to these numbers, that means you should combine a few different plyometric exercises in each full session. So you could do like box jumps and lateral bounds and medicine ball throws, for example. It should be strength and hypertrophy training like 2 to 4 times per week, depending on where in the season you are. If you don't have a competition coming up, then you can do more of this strength and hypertrophy training, like building a base so that it's ready to translate into speed and power when the season rolls around. In those sessions, you should do max effort strength at least 1 day per week, lifting very heavy, and then dynamic effort work, so like speed work, at least 1 other day per week. Things like speed deadlifts or jumping back squats. Then you should have at least 1 or 2 dedicated sprint sessions per week, maybe 1 for like pure speed and 1 dedicated to conditioning the anaerobic systems, but you can very easily combine those, like there's a lot of overlap between them. And with all of these workouts, you should start at the lower or the easier end of the volume and intensity range and work your way up as you get more conditioned. And eventually you'll be doing the highest number of reps and sets, so no need to rush that progression, like you'll get there eventually. In order to figure out what you should be focusing on, you should figure out if you're force deficient or velocity deficient. So if you're fast but weak, then you should probably focus on strength work for a while. And if you're strong but slow, which is a category I'd say I'm more in myself, you should probably focus more on speed work for a while. So you manipulate the volume of strength versus speed work based on which weaknesses you need to address. So during the off season, when you don't have any competitions coming up for a while, you can focus on hypertrophy and strength a bit more, obviously still including some plyometrics at the start of each of those strength sessions, and at least 1 or 2 sprint sessions during the week. And then as competition season comes around, you drop the strength and hypertrophy volume down to like maintenance level, maybe only 2 days a week, and you're focusing more on power and speed and sport specific training. And if you don't compete, then you can occasionally use this kind of in-season program as like a peaking block to then test your performance and see the results of all your hard work and see where you're at. And then you can get back to base building in the off-season type programs. Most of you watching will probably just be recreational athletes who want to become generally like faster and more powerful without needing to train specifically for some sport. So I've put together like quite a general off-season program that will train like all of these attributes to some extent, a bit more of a focus on like the strength and hypertrophy side of things. So the general structure for each workout day is pretty similar. You start with a general warm-up and then some dynamic stretches, and then you get into your plyometrics. So on Monday, that is explosive push-ups for 3 sets of 6. On Tuesday, it's box jumps. Wednesday, it is single leg hops. Thursday, it's rotational medicine ball throws. And then Friday, it's bounce. And after the plyometrics, you get into like the main workout of the day. On Monday, that is lower body strength. So you're doing heavy squats and heavy trap bar deadlifts with like 3 sets of 3 reps. On Tuesday, that is upper body strength. So this is like your high effort strength upper body workout with bench and overhead press. On Wednesday, we're doing a sprint workout, so that could be one of the workouts I mentioned earlier in the conditioning section or the sprint section. Then on Thursday and Friday, it's lower body and upper body dynamic effort, so like speed work. So you're focusing on not so much lifting really heavy weights, but moving the weights quickly. So a high number of sets, really low reps in each set, because the focus of each set is just to get a few really fast, high quality reps in. Things like speed squats, speed trap bar deadlifts, or speed bench, or speed overhead press. Then you follow that strength or dynamic effort work with some hypertrophy work for the specific muscles that you need to work on, like for your sport, or if you have some lagging areas or you need to reduce your injury risk. So a great one for like sprinters is Nordic curls, as I mentioned earlier. I would also, on the upper body days, I would put things like pull-ups and rows in this category as well. And then at the end of all the sessions, you do like some static stretching, some foam rolling, whatever you need to like cool your body down, get yourself feeling nice and loose. And on Saturday, I have got a low intensity, steady state cardio workout. So this isn't high intensity interval training like a sprint workout or anything. This is just to maintain the aerobic base, like your aerobic conditioning. So this will be a longer session focused on just getting your heart rate up to like 120 to 150 beats per minute for an extended period of time, like 30 to 60 plus minutes. And you only need to do this like once every week. And then Sunday is a rest day. Generally, you should have a rest day once a week, or at least like half of a day to fully rest every week. I won't provide an in-season program because that will be very specific to each sport, and you should follow what your coach told you to do. Everyone's conditioning and strength program should be tailored personally to them. So the ones that I provide on this channel are going to be very general because I don't know your exact situation, but your coach does. So you should definitely listen to your coach. They know what they're talking about, hopefully. They know what kind of conditioning and strength work you need to do for you to perform well at your sport and to fit all of that in around like your regular sport training program. I personally do some plyometrics at the start of each strength session, and I do 4 strength sessions a week, and then I do 2 anaerobic sessions per week. So like one of the HIIT workouts that I mentioned in the conditioning section, either sprinting or on the exercise bike. And I do a fair bit of walking in my city, which is quite hilly, so that's some more cardio. And I do 1 dedicated aerobic session per week. In the past, I've done a lot of low intensity aerobic work, so my aerobic base is pretty good, and I'm now focusing more on anaerobic conditioning and speed because years of slow running and heavy lifting without much speed work made me pretty slow, unsurprising. If you want a more general conditioning video for both aerobic and anaerobic conditioning, you can check out this one I made a while ago. It's targeted towards MMA fighters, but anyone can make use of the workouts in there using running or cycling instead of like shadow boxing or bag work or whatever. I definitely intend to make more videos about conditioning because it's something I'm interested in and I enjoy the way that being well conditioned makes me feel. I think it's also pretty underrated in the bodybuilding and strength space. A lot of people, think cardio will kill their gains or whatever, when that's not true at all. My conditioning video was also pretty popular, so it seems that there's some interest in this topic. If you've just started lifting or you've been lifting a while but you don't really have a plan, you can check out my programs on my website. Each package has loads of programs in it that you can choose from based on your schedule and your equipment. I guarantee there'll be something in there that will match your needs. I also have a testosterone optimization guide on there if you think you might have low testosterone, which is pretty common these days and it's getting more and more common. And lastly, if you enjoyed this video, check out my other videos, leave a comment with your thoughts or your experiences if you try some of these workouts, and consider leaving a super thanks. Just a few pounds or a few dollars. Your support is what allows me to keep making these videos and helping people like you max out your fitness and your health. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.